I am so excited for this video, you guys. Hey guys, what's up? It's Belle. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hello. And if you've come back, thank you so much. I appreciate every single one of you. Today, you guys, we are doing a very exciting video. I thought I would share with you guys my top 24 books of all time in honor of me literally just turning 24 last week. I cannot believe I'm 24. I feel like, is that a scary number? To me, it sounds like a scary number. But I'm talking to some of my friends and they're like, girl, no, not yet, not yet. You're just getting started. I was like, okay. So I turned 24 on the 7th of August. I sort of spent that week just taking a chill, you know, doing some fun things with my family, my friends. But I thought, what could be a cute way to celebrate this lovely little birthday of mine? And I thought, you know what? I'm gonna tell these beautiful people on the internet about the 24 books that I love more than anything in the world. So next to me here, I've got the 24 books and they are ranked 24 being my least favorite of the 24 and number 1 being my absolute favorite book of all time. When I tell you guys, it was so incredibly hard for me to rank these. I ended up finding a website online that basically I could put in all the titles and then it would ask me to like compare, like, do you prefer this book over this book? And it sort of like worked my way through the list until it gave me an itemized list from my favorite to my least favorite of the 24. Anyway, you guys, let's get right on into this video. Let's get comfy, let's get cozy, and let's talk about my favorite books of all time. Okay, so like I told you guys, the way that I have ranked these is I've done from 1 to 24, 24 being like my least favorite of the 24, and then number 1 being obviously my all-time fave. And this was so hard because it was literally like picking between my children, and I even had like, I made a whole list on my phone and I had to cull some of my babies because they just didn't fit into the 24. I just obviously have been a reader for such a long time, so some of these books are like books that I may have read when I was like 12 or 13. Some of them I may have read last week, like who knows, but they all hold a very special place in my heart. So let's just talk about the first one. So coming in at number 24 is an oldie but a goodie, and I just, every time I think about this book, I cry for starters. And I just like remember so much of my like middle school experience being wrapped up in this world. And the book is Clockwork Princess, and this is by Cassandra Clare. Now, for those of you who are unfamiliar, this is part of the Infernal Device trilogy. So to even paint you a bigger picture, Cassandra Clare is the author of the Shadowhunter Chronicles, and that is a universe of, let's say, I believe it's about 6 different series at this point, and they all follow these magical beings called Shadowhunters who are part angel, part human, and they basically kill demons, right? And each of the series takes place in a different time period. So this one here takes place in, I believe it's 17th century England. I did read them such a long time ago, however, I just remember them so vividly. This one is the last book in the series, and I just remember like little 12 or 13-year-old Belle reading the epilogue of this book. It was emotional damage. This one is a love triangle. It follows Tessa Gray and her sort of journey through the Shadowhunter world and how she navigates that world. I love it very much, and it holds a very special place in my soul. I'd love to do a reread soon, hopefully. Also, apologies for the lighting today, guys. It is raining outside, so yeah, if the lighting is shocking, you know why. Okay, coming in at number 23 is a book that I read last year, and again, emotional damage. It is A Thousand Boy Kisses, and this is by Tilly Cole. Now, I know that this is not everybody's cup of tea, and I completely understand and I can respect that. However, this book took a piece of my soul. I think I also mentioned this in my like Horcrux books, or like just books like my Roman Empires, because I don't think I've actually ever cried as hard at the ending of a book than I did when I read this book. So without giving too much away, this is a young adult romance. It is an emotional romance, so please check the trigger warnings if you do have some. But this follows Rune and Poppy. They are childhood best friends ever since Rune and his family moved to the States from Norway. They meet when they're quite young, they become inseparable, and then just before I guess they sort of start high school, Rune and his family have to move back to Norway, and they are separated. And essentially a few years pass, the family does move back to the States, and when Rune and Poppy do reconcile, they are not the same people that they used to be, and both of them are carrying new secrets. That's the best way I can describe this book without spoiling it, because it is very very emotional. I think the reason that I did like latch onto this book with an iron fist is because I really like it taught me to live beautifully and live every day to the fullest. So yeah, Emotional Damage. I have not read the second one yet, but I love this one so much, and it truly did destroy me. Coming in at number 22 is actually another young adult book, and it is by the same author as our 24th book, and it is City of Glass, and this is the third book in the Mortal Instruments series. I was touching on earlier when I was talking about Infernal Devices that there is quite a few series in the Shadowhunter Chronicles. This is the main series, and you may have seen the movie floating around, the Mortal Instruments City of Bones, or of course the Netflix adaptation Shadowhunters, which I did watch religiously as a child. This series here follows Clary Frey. She is a human and she suddenly gets thrust into the world of the Shadowhunters on her 16th birthday. This is a 6-book series. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, this is a 6-book series, and it really was my introduction to this universe. I read it first. City of Glass will always be my favorite. It is the middle book, so a lot happens, and I just love this story so much. And this particular book as well is actually signed by Cassandra Clare. I met her when I was probably 16 or 17 at the Brisbane Writers Festival, so this particular copy has a special spot in my heart, but I do love this book very, very, very much. Oh, I just got lipstick on my nails. For number 21, I have a new contemporary romance, and this one did come out last year, and I just loved it. And I know a lot of people, again, sort of are like, oh, this is a bit like love it or you hate it. But in the 21st spot is Wildfire by Hannah Grace. Now we all know that Icebreaker is sort of the most popular book that Hannah has written so far, and I cannot wait for Daydream, but there was just something about Wildfire that I loved so, so, so much. This follows Russ and Aurora, and basically they are in college, and the two of them meet at a frat party the night before summer break, and they sort of hit it off. They have a one-night stand and think they're never going to see each other again. However, neither actually knows that they have both signed on to be summer camp counselors at the same summer camp for the entire summer. And lo and behold, when they rock up to camp the next day and see that they're both there, things get a little crazy. And of course there is a rule, there is no fraternization between camp counselors. This book, as well as it just being like so incredibly atmospheric, I truly felt like a kid again. I felt like I was at a summer camp and I wanted to be a camp counselor so bad. It just made me laugh, it made me smile, it made me cry. I did also relate to Aurora so much because of her particular like plot line, and I felt like this book just has so much more heart than it gets credit for, and for that reason it just like it will forever live in my heart. Okay, I'm so excited about this book. Okay, at number 20, we have Caught Up by Liz Tomforde. This is book 3 in the Windy City series. For those who are unfamiliar with the Windy City series, this is an interconnected sports romance series, contemporary romance series, I should say, where each book does follow a different couple and it usually does cover a different sport. So for Caught Up, this is book 3 and this follows Kai and Miller. Kai is a baseball player. He is on the NBL. Chicago NBL. I'm learning, guys. I'm not a sports girly, but I'm learning through this. Liz Tomforde is educating me. He is a grumpy single dad. Basically, a few months ago, Kai opened his front door and there was a woman there that he did have a little connection with a baby in her arms, and she basically says that I do not want this baby anymore. I need you to take him. So Kai has just been sort of thrust into parenthood quite abruptly, and because he is the star player, he has a very busy career, he does need to hire a nanny. However, he just feels like every nanny that he's hiring is not good enough to take care of his son, and he goes through them very, very, very fast. And how the book opens here is we do see him having a conversation with his agent saying, you need to pick a nanny, this is getting silly. We then get introduced to Miller, who is a freewheeling chef. She very much is, you know, no strings attached, no tying herself down to one place at a time. She is a very renowned chef. However, she is experiencing a lot of burnout, right? And she's trying to create all these recipes for a new cookbook and she's just getting nowhere. Every time she's getting in the kitchen, everything is just failing, right? Basically, Kai and Miller end up meeting each other in an elevator one day in the same apartment building. They sort of don't hit it off straight away. However, Kai walks into a meeting with his agent, and who's standing next to him? The girl from the elevator, who happens to be his agent's daughter. Mr. Montgomery, Daddy Montgomery says, listen, this is Miller. She's my daughter. She's in a bit of a slump right now. She's gonna be your new nanny. Because I think it would work really well, and the story goes from there. I love this book so much, you guys, like way more than I thought I would have. Like, I am a sucker for a single dad and nanny trope, but actually like the hero of this book for me was the relationship between Miller and Max, who is Kai's little baby boy. I just loved it so much. These books have such incredible heart, and there are a few of them in the stack, but what I will always say about these books is that if you want like the most beautiful and honest, true depiction of how a man should treat a woman, read this series. Read this series. Coming in at number 19 is a cheeky little dark romance. I love this one so much. It just, like, I read it on my Kindle last year and I devoured it, and I have not stopped thinking about it since. And it is the Mind F series by St. Abbey. This is a dark romance, as I mentioned. So essentially, without giving too much away, this is a book that is technically a 5-book series. However, the books are all about 100 pages each, so you can read them as like individuals on Kindle Unlimited, but I bought the big book and it does have all 5 mini books in one, so I count it as one book, okay? This follows Lana Myers. She's a serial killer, and it basically follows the story of how she falls in love with the FBI agent who is working on her case. Okay? Basically, he has no idea that she is the person he's looking for, and things get messy, but the reason I love this book so much is not only because of like the dark romance elements, the mystery elements, the story as to why Lana is a serial killer will absolutely rip your heart out and tear it into two. Like, look, I support women's rights, I support women's wrongs, and sometimes you would think this is a woman's wrong, okay? But I'm not supporting it in real life, but there is a valid reason as to why she's doing what she's doing, and you find that out in the book. I urge you, if you want to try something a little bit different, please check the trigger warnings, but this is such a great place to start. It's incredibly bingeable, and yeah, I'll forever love this. I want to do a reread soon. Coming in at number 18 is an oldie but a goodie. It is one of the first 5-star reads that I had last year, and it is a perfect Marriage of Convenience, and it is Terms and Conditions by Lauren Asher. This is book 2 in the Dreamland Billionaires series. You guys know I'm a massive fan of Lauren Asher. I pretty much have loved every single book that she has written. I've given a majority of them 5 stars, but this one here will always just reign supreme. This book follows Declan and Iris. The premise of this series somewhat is that it does follow 3 brothers, so each book is about a different brother. Basically, they've all been left a portion of their inheritance by their grandfather. However, in order to receive that inheritance, they have to do something, right? So for this book here, Terms and Conditions, we follow Declan, who is the eldest brother, and basically for him to get his inheritance, his grandfather wants him to settle down and have a family, because basically he was sort of known to never do that, never want to do that. He's a bit of a freewheeling person, right? So essentially he's getting to the crunch time and he's trying to find a woman to marry to fulfill, you know, this duty that he has to get the money. And basically nothing's really working. So who decides to volunteer other than his assistant, Iris? And we get this incredible workplace, like, romance, Marriage of Convenience. It's spicy, it's sexy, it's heartfelt, heartwarming. I just love it so much. I want to give it another read. It was so good. I personally am a massive fan. Like, look how beautiful these like pages are. I'm a massive fan of Marriage of Convenience. It's one of my favorite tropes. My wife, you'll probably see a few of them in here. So yeah. Please read these books if you haven't already, you will love them. Coming in at number 17 is a young adult book that actually was the very first book that got me back into reading in 2021, I want to say, which was a really long time ago. And one of my best friends in real life recommended me to read this because I do love a fruity book. And it is Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe, and this is by Benjamin Elia Sanez. I'm so sorry. This is not only a very sweet and very touching coming of age story, but it is one of the most like poetically written books I've ever read. This does follow Aristotle and Dante. They are 2 teenage boys who meet each other over the summer, and basically Ari teaches Dante how to swim. No, Dante teaches Ari how to swim. And the story sort of goes from there. As I said, very, you know, incredible book of self-discovery and coming of age and love and heartbreak and family issues, and it's just a beautiful book. There is a second book in this series, but this one will always hold so true. I have not seen the film yet because I'm still like doing another reread of it and annotating it. I am scared because I was so disappointed by another book to screen adaptation that I'm so scared to watch this one. but I will be trying to do it before the end of the year because I just love it very much. I'm sweating so much. Okie dokie, guys. I think this is number 18. Let me check. No. For number 16, we have my most recent 5-star read, and it is another one from the Windy City series. It is Play Along by Liz Tomford. Now, this is book number 4. So I was talking about Caught Up before. This book follows Isaiah and Kennedy. So Isaiah is actually Kai's brother. So I mentioned Kai was the main character of the previous book, Caught Up, and this follows Isaiah. He's also on a baseball team, but he plays for a different team than his brother. And this book here is an incredible waking up in Vegas drunk, marriage of convenience sort of slow burn. This book had me immediately. This is the first time I've ever talking about this book, and I love it so much. Isaiah is just the most cheeky little MMC. I love him so much. If you have read this book, you'll know that Mariah Carey's Obsessed, you know, why you so obsessed with me, is like the theme song of this book, and I love it so much. So basically, as I mentioned, this follows Isaiah and Kennedy. So Isaiah is on the baseball team and Kennedy is the athletic trainer. So she basically, well, one of the athletic trainers. So she looks after the boys whenever they have any injuries. And basically Isaiah has always had a thing for Kennedy, and she just sort of doesn't take it. She knows he's a playboy. She doesn't really want to jeopardize her position, you know, in the team because she's a woman. She's the only woman on the team who's like part of the staff there. And basically, it's very much reverse Grumpy Sunshine. He's the golden retriever, she's the black cat. Anyways, the book opens on a boys' weekend trip to Vegas before the season starts. They're out at a club, having a good old time, when suddenly Isaiah runs smack bang into Kennedy. He's sort of shocked to see her. He's like, what are you doing here? She goes, I'm actually here on a bachelorette party for my stepsister who is getting married to the man I was engaged to. So let's just say Isaiah and Kennedy escape the party. They go and have one too many drinks. There is a little bit of a drunken let's get married to get back at my ex. They end up at a little chapel where there's an Elvis impersonator and they get married, and the story goes from there. This book I just felt like so personally attached to as well because the main character Kennedy has a lot of issues with like physical touch and like intimacy, and like I can relate to that. But also, like I said, these books just make me cry. These people feel like my family, and honestly, all men should treat women like this. Period. My why is so obsessed with me? Boy, I wanna know. Okay, I'm done. At number 15 is a book from one of my absolute favorite series of all time, and it is Reckless by Elsie Silver. This is book 4 in the Chestnut Springs series. For those who don't follow me on TikTok or haven't been sort of seeing my face for a long time, I do talk about these books a lot. They are one of my absolute favorite series of all time. It is a small town romance cowboy series where it's all interconnected standalones. Basically follows a group of brothers and their friends and each of their individual love stories, right? So book 4 follows Theo and Winter. Theo is a little bit of a cowboy, bit of a rodeo man, and it is a one-night stand accidental pregnancy, but it is done so right. For those who do not like the accidental pregnancy trope, please try this book because it actually is done so well. It's brought in at the beginning of the book. It's sold that way. So it's not like it's thrown in at the end as a plot device, because I don't like that either. This is reverse Grumpy Sunshine and like girl dad. Oh my god, this man, he just loves his girls. I can't say too much without giving it away. The men in this series have just set my standards through the freaking bloody roof, and I would love to do a reread of this because it's just so incredibly touching and heartwarming. Coming in at number 14, we have the start of some of my absolute faves. At number 14, I have Heartstopper Volume 4. Now, for anybody who can see the leaves on my bedroom right now, anywhere, Heartstopper holds an incredibly special spot in my heart. It is one of my favorite pieces of media and of like literature of all time. I think that if you ever want to read something that is just going to make you feel so warm, so giddy, but like just teach you so much and open your eyes to so much, like please read this series. It is a 5-book graphic novel series at present. There is going to be a sixth one, and is a graphic novel. So like I said, it's sort of, you know, quite easy to read. It does follow the friends to lovers relationship between Nick Nelson and Charlie Spring. Nick Nelson is the captain of the rugby team and Charlie Spring is the quietly confident year 10 drummer who honestly I love more than life. This is volume 4, as I mentioned. The reason that I have chosen this one out of all the volumes so far is it is my absolute favorite. This one is probably the most content heavy. I will say Heartstopper does touch on some very heavy topics, but it is done in such a gentle, protective, eye-opening way that is also got a little bit of like the rose-colored glass tint over it because there's always light at the end of the tunnel. It is informative, but it's also got a way out, and I think that is so special. This book follows Charlie's journey in particular, and I am so excited to see season 3 in October because I know that it is going to follow volumes 4, 5, and then the This Winter novella. So yeah, this one is my favorite because it really shows the growth of Nick and Charlie as a couple. Just their love makes me sad, but I love them, you know. Okay, at number 13, we have one that is gonna be very exciting to talk about. It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. Now, I actually just saw the film last week, and I have to say, you guys, I was so incredibly happy with it. I was talking to my friends a few weeks ago about the film, and I was sort of saying that I was like, why is this book being made into a film? Because I just truly feel like if it wasn't done in the right way, that it could have just been the biggest mess and offensive thing that could have been produced. However, I was so impressed. I bawled my eyes out, and I think it was done so tastefully, and it was done in a way that is informative, and it is a movie that is going to save lives. So this is a very controversial piece of literature. You either love this book or you do not. However, this book to me has a very special spot in my heart because I personally relate to the subject matter. It is very important to my family, and for that reason, this book will always have a piece of my soul. This follows Lily Bloom and her life journey in finding a partner and talking about her past, her present, and her future. It does have a very heavy content warning. Please read the trigger warnings. This book is about domestic violence and domestic abuse, so please know that before you go in, because a lot of people do not, and I think a lot of the press for this film has not been targeted in a way that it actually it actually informs that that's what the movie is going to be about. I think that that's one thing I will say, is that not a lot of my friends, when I tell them about it, say I've seen the trailer but I didn't know that's what it was about, and I think people need to know that before going in. So this book will always make me cry. I think, like I said, it's a book that will inform and will save lives. A lot of people sometimes when they are in a tricky relationship or a tricky situation will have friends in their life saying, why don't you just leave them? Like, why are you still with that person? And I think this book, and even the film, if you go and watch it, will teach you why that is not so easy to do. So yeah, I'll love this book always, and you can't make me hate it. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry, actually, it's my birthday. At number 12, we have an oldie but a goodie, and this is one of the very first books that made me cry a lot. Like, look, I cry a lot, and I'm not even a Cancer. I'm a Leo. I'm the truest Leo. I'm a dragon Leo. Like, what's happening? Anyways, this book really did change my life. I did make my mum read it as well, and I just love it, and it's always going to be a book that I will hold with such fondness, and it is The Fault in Our Stars by John Green. I think we've all seen the film by now. It was in that beautiful time period between 2011 to about 2015 where all these young adult books were being adapted, and they were done so well, and they were over 2 hours, and they put everything in properly, right? So this book here, for those who have not heard of it before, it does follow Hazel and Augustus, and it is about cancer, so please check the trigger warnings. I'm just gonna tell you that now, obviously. And it is a beautiful, lighthearted, heartwarming, devastating book about love, about friendship, and about working through one of the toughest things a person could work through. John Green is one of my favorite authors, and I read all of his books when I was quite young, but this one was just so incredibly insightful. And oh, I want to watch the movie again. You guys will know I've got a really interesting mix of favorite books, but a lot of them have to have emotional trauma for me to hold on to them forever. So Yep, there you go. In the 11th spot is a book that I read last month, I want to say. It is The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. This has become so incredibly popular this year. I haven't read anything else by Ashley Poston before I had read this. I still haven't. Basically follows Clementine. She has recently inherited an apartment from her aunt who just passed, and her aunt were very, very, very close. Her aunt always told her, you know, this apartment has magical powers, and Clementine was like, girl, you're lying. Like, I don't believe you for a second. Clementine's been working in publishing for the last 7 years. She truly believes that like this is where she's meant to be. She's been working hard and she is on the cusp of a promotion. So anyway, Clementine moves into this apartment, and one morning she wakes up and there is a strange man standing in her kitchen, and her apartment just does not look like it looked last night when she went to bed. It has gone back 7 years in the past, and the book really does focus on not chasing who you were in the past, not chasing your future, staying in the present, and also like has the most incredible depiction of grief and real depiction of grief. I just think it's such a, like, it's a romance, but it's also a book that will teach you a lot about yourself and open your eyes to how you think about life. I think everybody should read this book. I want my mum to read it, because any book that I feel is like life-changing, I'm like, Mum, you have to read this. We have hit the top 10. These are my top 10 books of all time. These were so hard to rank. I'm looking at them and I'm smiling. So let's just get into it without further ado. In the 10th spot, I have Catching Fire, which is the second book in the Hunger Games trilogy, which I'm pretty sure everybody knows that by now. If you don't, this is a young adult dystopian series. It does have a book, a film adaptation, which is incredible, but Catching Fire will always be my absolute favorite. This obviously follows Katniss Everdeen, and she is sort of thrust into the world of the Hunger Games when she volunteers to save her sister in the Reaping. The Hunger Games are an annual death tournament where 24 children are selected from each of the districts to fight in a tournament for one lone victor. I think we all know that, but in case you don't, you now know. Catching Fire is the second book. It does follow Katniss and Peter as they are working their way through the Victory Tour. Sorry, I'm not spoiling it. We all know. We've all seen the Hunger Games, okay? We've all seen the Hunger Games. We've all read the Hunger Games, okay? I'm sorry. I am a team Peter girly till the day that I die, and that is the reason why I love Catching Fire so much. Not only is the games in this book so incredibly complex, it just had me enthralled. I will always, always, always love Peter Malark, and I think that him in the book, like I love the depiction in the movie, but Peter Malark in the book is just the most incredible man, and all of the things that are in this, like when they're sitting on the roof and he's braiding her hair and he paints her, and he, like the quotes that he says, like, you know, where he's like, I wish I could freeze this moment right now, right here, and live in it forever, and, you know, like all of these things. And I love Peter so much, and Catching Fire will always be a book that I love with everything that I am. Coming in at number 9, we have Nick and Charlie, and this is by Alice Oseman. This is a little novella. Now, I mentioned Heartstopper before. The way the Oseman verse is sort of broken up is Alice has written the Heartstopper graphic novels, of course, and illustrated them, but they have also created another series which is somewhat interconnected but mostly standalones, right? And if you can see my shelves, it is the lovely rainbow stack in the middle just there. So it does follow some of the characters from Heartstopper, and they were mostly written before the graphic novels were created. To give you a bit of a backstory, the first book that Alice wrote was a book called Solitaire, and I'll put it on the screen, and this follows Charlie's sister Tori, okay? That book was written first. Nick and Charlie do make an appearance in that book. Alice then had the idea to go, oh my goodness, I love Nick and Charlie so much, I want to illustrate and write their backstory. So that's what the graphic novels stemmed from. Now, where Nick and Charlie comes into play is this is an actual novel, or a mini little novel, that takes place before Nick goes to college or university, and that has not been drawn yet, that has not been illustrated yet. So that's what this book is about. The reason that I love this one in particular, and I think about it on the daily, is I truly believe that Nick and Charlie have one of the most healthy relationships that I have ever read about. I think for their age, at this point, I think that they are 16 and 17, maybe 17 and 18. This couple has not broken up in the entire time that we have known them, right? And this sort of is the first time we get a lot of major conflict between the characters, because it is very scary for them to make this change before Nick goes to uni. And I think that the way that they communicate, the way that they get through things, they talk about things, to me, they are soulmates, and they are the true definition of soulmates. I love them so much, and this book makes me cry. And if I could keep any book from the Osmondverse collection, it will always be Nick and Charlie. And I love this special edition that I got in the mail recently, so yeah. Coming in at number 8, we have The Right Move by Liz Tomforde, which is book 2 in the Windy City series. Now this book is following a different sport. This one is a basketball sports romance. Now this book follows Ryan and Indy, so this is sort of a continuation on from the first book. Some of the characters bleed through into this book. Ryan is a grumpy basketball player, okay? He's sort of always used to flying solo. He loves his twin sister Stevie more than life. She was the protagonist of the first book. But other than that, he is pretty much a lone wolf, and he is sort of happy going about his life that way. However, one day he gets a phone call from his twin, and she basically says, hey, you know my best friend Indy, who basically works with her as a flight attendant, she has just broken up with her fiance and she needs somewhere to live. She needs a place urgently, and you guys do know each other, and I feel like you'll stay out of each other's way. Can she live with you? And Ryan is sort of like, Stevie, I don't like this, you know, I don't want anybody in my space, like this is not okay. But he does eventually end up giving in. We do get a lovely forced proximity, roommates, grumpy sunshine, and fake dating book with the most beautiful depiction of silent love. The man in this book, Ryan Shea, you are the blueprint. I'm getting emotional thinking about what this man does for her. If you've read it, you know. And I wanted to reread so badly. Please read this book. I love it. I love it so much. At number 7, we have the world's favorite book, pretty much. We have Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. I read this last year. This was the very first romantasy book that I'd ever read, or let's say adult romantasy, right? Because as I said, I'd read, you know, the Shadowhunters when I was younger. I got sort of pressured into reading this because obviously I am on BookTok and it was everybody's cup of tea, and I was sort of just told that I was going to love this, and I said, hold on, I don't read a lot of this genre. And everyone was like, please read it. And I said, okay. This book is big, right? It's about 500 pages. It's a chunker, right? I read this book in 2 days. I couldn't put it down. It was so incredibly easy to understand. I was immediately wrapped up in it and obsessed with it and couldn't stop reading it. I became attached to the characters immediately. Like, instantly was infatuated by all of them. So basically this book follows violent, cut the cameras. It follows Violet Sorrengail, and she has decided to go in and become a writer and become part of the Writers Quadrant. There is dragons in this. This is basically like if Hunger Games and Divergent had a baby, but with like lots of spies, you know what I mean? So basically she decides to join the Writers Quadrant one day. It's sort of like Divergent, how they got all the factions, right? The Writers Quadrant is sort of like Dauntless, very scary, very full on, right? She joins this quadrant and the story goes from there. I really don't want to spoil it too much, but this is an enemies to lovers, you guys. And oh my god, Zayden Ryerson, come and find me. Seriously, the last 100 pages of this book and then the last page of this book had me in tears. I couldn't breathe. There's a video on my TikTok. If you want to go and have a look, I'll put my @ on the screen. I can't even talk about it because if I talk about it too much, I'm going to spoil it. That's how much I love this book, okay? It's so good. Like, if you want to dabble in romantasy and you haven't yet, please read this. It's worth the hype, 130,000%. Coming in at number 6 is one of the very first books that I read in 2024, and I can't believe how long it took me to finally get around to this and to finally read this book. But it is A Court of Mist and Fury, and this is by Miss Sarah J. Maas. Now, I'm so late to this train and it makes me really sad. I cannot tell you too much about what this one is about because it is book 2 in the series. To give you an sort of an idea of what the first one is about, for some reason when I put this book up, it like decides to play funny buggers and whatever. It's basically a romantasy series where we have like high fae, right? Let's say that, and some sexy bat boys and things like that. It's sort of like like a Beauty and the Beast inspired retelling, the first one. I didn't love A Court of Thorns and Roses. I gave it like a 3.5 star, but everybody was saying to me like, please, 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 please read book 2. You will absolutely love the series after that. And I'm so glad that I did, because it genuinely felt like it was written by a completely different author. I was immediately invested. I love the romance in this book. Truly, as much as I love the plot as well, the romance in this book like gripped me so hard. I've never been so invested in a couple in my life, and the revelation in this particular book had me crying. Whenever I think about this book, I feel like I'm there. I feel like I can see everything so vividly. I have a Spotify playlist for this book because there's a particular like little event that happens in this book called Starfall, and it's just as magical as you think it would sound in a magical fairy world. And I've got like a playlist for that. I've got a playlist for my favorite character, Cassian, and the songs that I think he would just like play at a party. Like, that's how much I love this series and this whole thing. But A Court of Mist and Fury will always be my fave, and one of the most incredible love confessions I've ever read. Oh my god, guys, we're at the top 5. Okay, before I get into top 5, what do you guys think is going to be in the top 5? If you know me well, what do you think is going to be my number 1? What have I not mentioned yet? These are the books that I genuinely think people associate with me the most. I did a video on TikTok a few weeks ago, like talking about the books that I think people associate me with, and these 5 are definitely like, you'd probably pick it out of a thing straight away. So coming in at number 5 is a book that I need to do a reread of so badly. I'm looking at it and I'm crying that I haven't yet. And it is Twisted Games, and this is by Ana Huang. This is book 2 in the Twisted series. You guys will probably have known about the Twisted series for a very long time. It's a very popular contemporary romance series. It follows a group of girls from college, and each book is their individual love story, right? This is book 2. This follows Reese and Bridget. So Bridget is a modern day princess and Reese is her bodyguard. Every time I talk about this book and the series, I truly feel like this book was such in a league of its own. It almost feels misplaced in this series because it truly gives me like all the Bridgerton vibes, but it's modern, it's sexy, it's forbidden. It is just such an incredible book. I cried my eyes out reading this. I laughed, I swooned. The crawling, genuinely one of my favorite books of all time. Like, I will never stop singing this book's praises. I want Ana Huang to write more books like this, because as much as I'm loving the billionaire romances and the, you know, contemporary romances, it's getting a bit stale. And if she would write more books, forbidden romances with like ex-military men's bodyguards, things like that, I would eat it up. This is such a great book, you guys, and has one of the best love confessions I've ever read in a book. Not my favorite, but you will hear that at the end of the video because it's in my number 1. Coming in at number 4 is one of my favorite daddies of all time. It is Heartless by Elsie Silver, which is book 2 in the Chestnut Spring series. I don't think a day goes by where I don't think about this book, I don't think about this man, and I don't think about this family, okay? Okay. This is a lovely mirror edition that I got off Amazon for Amazon Prime Day, and I'm so glad that I found it. For those who haven't heard, like I said, I talked about Chestnut Springs a bit earlier when we talked about Reckless, but Heartless is another grumpy single dad and the nanny, and it's so good. So this follows Cade Eaton. He is the eldest of our Eaton brothers. He is a lovely cowboy, and he's got a little boy called Luke, and basically over the summer he's looking to hire a nanny because he wants to get some work done on the farm, on the land, whatever. And he sort of starts to ask around to see if anybody knows anybody. And basically Cade's brother Rhett has just recently gotten engaged to a lovely girl called Summer, and Summer says, hey, I've got a best friend, her name's Willa, and she's looking for some work over the summer. I think it would be great for you to sort of chat with her. She's great with kids. And on the day that Cade is supposed to meet up with Willa, he sort of goes into this coffee shop, he's lining up to order, and there's a girl in front of him who's ordering, and as she's sort of digging through her bag, a pair of underwear falls out. Let's just say that, right? A pair of underwear falls out, and the girl doesn't see it. But because this man is sort of infatuated by the girl, he thinks she's quite cute, he decides to take these panties and sort of tuck them in his pocket. Just keep them for later. Imagine his shock. Imagine his shock and disarray when he goes to meet up with Willa in a few hours and her panties are in his back pocket. Tell me that's not the best way to open a book you've ever heard, right? Not only this, you guys, this book has so much heart. It has so much like joy and laughter and found family and like I said, it's another book that like when I was reading it and when I think about it, I can see it, I can hear it. It has a soundtrack as well, and I listen to it all the time. It's got like Summer of '69, One of Them Girls, and like Hurricane by Luke Combs, and it's like everything you want in a small town country romance book. It will always be my favorite in the series. It will always be my favorite small town romance ever, and Daddy Cade for the win. Oh my god. Top three? Top three what? These three books in my mind are perfection, and they genuinely took a piece of me, and I will never get it back, especially this one. So coming in at number 3, I have Hunting Adeline by H.D. Carlton. This is book 2 in the Cat and Mouse duet. Now listen up, y'all, because this is it. I have seen so many different thoughts, opinions, and feelings on this series, and I can understand why and I appreciate why. However, this duet holds a piece of my soul. Hunting Adeline in particular ruined me. It made me feel physically unwell. So this is a duet, Haunting Adeline, Hunting Adeline. Haunting is first and this is the second one. This is a dark romance and it does follow a stalker situation. We call it the cat and mouse duet for a reason, because it is very much like predator and prey, right? So this follows Adeline Riley. She is an up-and-coming author, and basically she has just inherited this old manor from her grandmother Gigi, and she's decided to live in it against her mother's wishes, because her mother's like, why do you want to live in that house? It's creepy, it's gross, it's blah, right? She basically decides to live in this house, and as Adeline is sort of like discovering the house, she ends up finding a hole in the wall where there is a diary, and this diary ended up belonging to her grandmother Gigi, okay? And as Addie's like reading the diary, she's starting to realize that her grandmother had a stalker, and it was a stalker that her grandmother ended up falling in love with. And history loves to repeat itself, and Adeline starts to notice that she has also attracted someone who is very fixated on her. His name is Zade Meadows. This man! Okay. I'm not condoning it in real life. I'm not. But basically the first book sort of follows the cat and mouse back and forth, and the second book is the aftermath. And I'm not gonna spoil what it's about, because I think you should genuinely please. The first book I gave like 4 stars. This is an Infinity 6-star book. I felt physically sick reading this book. I felt like I was there with the main character through the entire thing. I cried. I was like reading it on my Kindle. I sat in my bed. I was shaking. I was hyperventilating. I like literally could not breathe while I was reading this book. I laughed. I cried. And I think that's everything that you should have in a book. I'm sorry about the rain. It's just started pouring outside. And I will never forget this story, and I really want to read it in October because I've been wanting to do a reread for a while. This man loves his woman so much, and I just want one. Where do I find one? Please, Daddy Zade. It's time for our top 2, and when I tell you guys, it was so hard to pick between these 2 books as to which one's my favorite, because they are the 2 books that I have reread the most. I did come to a decision as to which was number 2 and which was number 1, and in the second spot, my second favorite book of all time is Red, White, and Royal Blue, and this is by Casey McQuiston. I'll just duck quickly so you guys can see all the editions I have of this book. I probably have about 6 copies of this book. I don't know, guys. I can't tell you why and how, at what point in my life this just gripped me and why it gripped me, but it did. This book follows the rivals to lovers relationship between the first son of the United States and the Prince of Wales. Okay, I really do talk about this book more than anything, but I read this book and I just can't explain the euphoria that I got when I read this book, when I finished this book, when I continually like reread this book, because I do. I have reread this book probably 5 or 6 times. I did not like the film, okay? Because I truly feel like they messed it up so bad. So I'm not an advocate for the film. Please read the book. If you've even watched the film, please read the book, because like it says on the back of the book, I always say that this book feels like fireworks in the sky and glitter in your hair. That's just how it feels. It is the most beautiful love story. It has an incredible political message, but it's got the most incredible group of friends. And it's funny. If you want a book that like is genuinely going to make you laugh out loud, you will love this book. Nothing has ever made me feel the way this book makes me feel. Like, yeah. It's when I used to rainbow tab, that's how gross this is. But yeah, I've got so many. I've got the movie tie-in cover and everything over there, so I love them more than anything. Okay. we're at my favorite book of all time, you guys. We're at my favorite book of all time. If you have been following me for a while, you're gonna know what this book is before I even hold it up. If you have not, get ready because I'm about to talk about it for probably 5 minutes. This is a book that I love with everything I am, everything I've been, and everything I hope to be. It is a book that I also have multiple editions of, and I read it in 2021 or 2022 for the very first time. It is part of an interconnected standalone series. It is a romance, and it has my two favorite people in the world. It has my favorite couple in the whole world, and I wish more than anything that I could lose my memory so I could go back and read this for the very first time because I love them so much. My favorite book of all time is Romancing Mr. Bridgerton by Julia Quinn. This book feels like home. Don't ask me why, okay? This is, of course, a part of the Bridgerton series, and this is Colin and Penelope's story. This is book 4, even though it was the 3rd season of the TV show. And I don't know why, you guys. I don't know why. And I'm not a fan of Friends to Lovers. But these two just have me wrapped around their dang fingers. Like, I can't explain it to you guys how much I love them. Their story is so important to me. Let me hold up this book. I watched Bridgerton the first 2 seasons. I think it was in 2022 when the 2nd season came out. I watched those 2 seasons first, and then I found out that the 3rd season was going to be about Colin and Penelope, and I already had loved them so much from the show that I was like, I need to read their book. So I picked up Romancing Mr. Bridgerton. I have annotated the absolute living daylights out of this book. I read it and I absolutely fell in love with them. I think the way that Colin loves Penelope makes her love herself, but it's also such an incredible like depiction, especially in this time, of the way that men sometimes can feel really insecure about a woman who they love and care about being potentially more successful than them. And I think the way that Colin genuinely loves her so much that he's not threatened by that he will stand by her side while he watches her shine is so important. And that's why I love him so much. Their story is just beautiful. It is a childhood friends to lovers, and I was so incredibly happy with season 3. I've read this book so much. It is like a comfort book to me. Whenever I feel like I just need to pick me up, I will go and flick through this book because I just love them so much. It has my favorite love confession of all time, which I sort of briefly talked to you about. I love you with everything I am, everything I've been, and everything I hope to be. I love you with my past, and I love you for my future. I love you for the children we will have and for the years we'll have together. I love you with every one of my smiles, and even more for every one of your smiles. Wow. That's a man. Penelope is also one of my favorite female characters of all time, and I'm probably going to name my first daughter after her. I'm being so for real. So, #1 book of all time, Romancing Mr. Bridgerton. Oh my goodness, you guys, that is the end of the video. Those are my top 24 favorite books of all time, which is insane. Thank you guys so much for sticking through to the end. If you have, I genuinely appreciate it so much. It's insane. I've had an incredible birthday month, and thank you for all the love I did receive on all of my social media platforms. If you aren't already and you would like to, feel free to follow me on TikTok and on Instagram. I'll put the links here. I'm very active over there, and we have a lot of fun, especially on my Insta stories, especially like when I'm picking my TBRs and that. So if you'd like to join me there, feel free to. And of course, if you're not already, feel free to like this video and subscribe to my channel if you would like to, and hit that notification bell. That way you're notified every time I put up a brand new video. I try to do 2 a week. Have you guys read any of my favorite books? I want to talk to you about them. What are your favorite books of all time? I would love to know. These are they're my babies, and I love them very much. Thank you guys so much again. Wherever you are in the world, I hope you're having a lovely day or a lovely night, and I will see you all next time. Bye.